Lyme disease is an infectious disease that is found around the world. In North America, it is most commonly caused by the bacteria Borrelia burgdorferi. Cousins of this bacteria, Borrelia guarinii and Borrelia afzelii, are the causes of Lyme disease in Europe and Asia. In the early 1970s, a group of children and adults in Lyme, Connecticut, and the surrounding areas were suffering from some puzzling and debilitating health issues. Their symptoms included swollen knees, paralysis, skin rashes, headaches, and severe chronic fatigue. But people couldn't really understand what was going on. After a while, the medical establishment began to study the group's symptoms. By the mid-1970s, researchers began describing the signs and symptoms of this new disease. They called it Lyme disease because it originated in Lyme, Connecticut, but they still didn't know what caused it. In 1981, a scientist named Willy Burgdorfer started to study Lyme disease. He discovered that a bacterium carried by ticks was causing Lyme disease. These Lyme disease-causing bacteria are spirochetes, which means that they are long, thin, and spiral-shaped, and that they twist and spin to move. Their shapes are sometimes compared to telephone cords. Lyme disease is spread to humans from animals that exist as reservoirs. Reservoirs meaning that the bacteria typically doesn't cause serious disease to the animal. Unfortunately, the Lyme-causing bacteria can infect a wide range of animals, including mice, lizards, and birds. These bacteria are not known to spread directly to humans, but instead they need a vector, meaning some sort of intermediate organism to spread from the animal to human. Oftentimes, these organisms are ticks. Now, how do ticks carry the Lyme disease bacteria from animals to humans? Well, ticks need blood as food, just like leeches, mosquitoes, and vampires do. Unfortunately, if ticks feed on animals that have Lyme disease bacteria in their blood, like a mouse, the tick can pick up this bacteria while sucking its blood and can spread this bacteria to the subsequent organisms it feeds on, such as deer or humans, and these organisms then develop Lyme disease. So, how can we tell if someone has Lyme disease? It can be difficult because the disease has many varied symptoms that can seem like the flu, such as aches and pains and fever. However, one of the earliest signs of Lyme disease is a bullseye-shaped rash on the body, usually at the site where the tick bite occurred. A diagnosis for Lyme disease is usually based on a test that involves a couple of steps. First, Borrelia burgdorferi bacteria are broken into pieces and put into a tube or dish. Then, the patient's blood is extracted, and within the blood, there are antibodies. Antibodies are basically like puzzle pieces that fit together with the disease. Once the antibody has bound to its target disease, it signals for an immune response. In this test, if the antibodies bind to the Lyme disease bacteria, they fluoresce, and this indicates that the patient has mounted an immune response to the bacteria, and therefore, Lyme bacteria is present within their system. The problem with this test is twofold. First, the sample size of the antibodies can be too low and thus yield a false negative result because none of them happen to bind to the bacteria. Secondly, these antibodies do not necessarily tell us whether or not that Lyme disease-causing bacteria are still present, as the human immune system continues to produce Lyme disease-specific antibodies for many months to years after the disease is eradicated, and this can yield to a false positive result. Basically, our methods for detecting Lyme disease are often imperfect. In addition, many people ignore the symptoms of Lyme disease because, at the beginning, they do resemble the cold or flu, which have no remedies and only require bed rest. The number of people who do go undiagnosed is thought to be rather high as a result. To treat Lyme disease, often antibiotics are given as a first line of treatment, and if given early on in the disease, are very effective at wiping out the bacteria. However, some patients treated with antibiotics continue to exhibit chronic pain, often in their joints and muscles, but at places unrelated to the tick bite site, and also experience overwhelming tiredness, brain fog, and difficulty paying attention. It isn't clear where these symptoms come from, but because there is no evidence that the bacteria lives on chronically in the body after treatment with antibiotics, many scientists believe that these symptoms could be autoimmune related. And for now, there is no cure for these symptoms. In America, Lyme disease is most prevalent in the New England, tri-state, and Minnesota-Wisconsin regions. However, the risk of contracting Lyme disease outside of these areas also exists. In Europe, Lyme disease is mostly confined to woody and swampy areas with warm and cold seasons. Lyme disease has shown up outside of these places and is prevalent across the global north and in parts of the global south. People who work in, live in, or explore woody areas are the most at risk for being bitten by a tick and getting Lyme disease. The time periods from March to mid-May and from mid-August to November are the times when ticks are the most active and when you're most likely to come in contact with them. Taking preventative measures such as wearing long pants, high socks, and hats, as well as using bug spray in areas where ticks are known to harbor Lyme disease bacteria, are great ways to lower your likelihood of getting the disease. Thanks for watching!